Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Megan Cline. She is here to celebrate 3 great books: Winston Winks, Winston Wiggles, and Winston is Wet. Before we invite Megan in to celebrate her great books, we want to invite you to join us for reading in the new year. Say goodbye to 2020. Say hello to all the promise, hope, and excitement 2021 is bringing us. This is going to be a week-long virtual family literacy event. It is happening at readingintheNewYear.com. We've assembled authors from all over the world. You and your family will get to see videos of authors reading their books aloud, great performances, and do it together activities. It's happening Christmas Day 2020 all the way through New Year's Day 2021. That's right. Fantastic authors, fantastic opportunities for great family time together, and there are also a number of free downloads that your family can take advantage of. It's all happening starting Christmas Day at readingintheNewYear.com. Joining us right now from a treehouse, and I'm not kidding at all, from a treehouse in Iowa. She is the author of a great series of books. We're going to start by talking about Winston Winks. Please welcome to the show, Megan Cline. Megan, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Before we get into talking about Winston Winks and Winston Wiggles and Winston is Wet, Megan's in a treehouse. I'm looking at Megan. She is dead up in a treehouse. From what I can see, a beautiful, kind of log cabin-y kind of thing with windows and the tree right up behind her. And I'm waiting for a squirrel or a bird to land on one of those branches. You gotta tell me how this office space treehouse came to be.
Well, I'm very lucky. My husband built this for my son and the children in our neighborhood, and they absolutely love it. They come up here, and believe it or not, they write books when they come up here. They like to write comic books and draw. We also have video gaming that happens, but they for the majority like to come up here and create. And I asked permission for my son to be up here, and he says, well, we can share the office space, but it's a great place to be creative. It's a great place. It's very peaceful. I might have a squirrel visitor once in a while. I might have a bird visitor once in a while, but they're good company up here.
I'm wondering, you were talking about your son and his friends create in this space, and you create in that space. Do you think the being in nature and being next to this living thing that is creating every day, growing and turning carbon dioxide into oxygen for us and home for all these different creatures, do you think that helps add to the creative process?
Oh, I absolutely believe that. Right now, I'm looking out, I'm seeing a blue sky, sunshine's coming in, I'm elevated off the ground. It's something about lifting yourself off the ground and being higher up, and I've removed myself from all these other distractions, all the distractions we have in this world, and absolutely, you can't help but come in here and feel creative. Also, I'll toot the horn of my creative husband. It's a piece of art. It really is a piece of art, what he created. Every angle, he made it a hexagon shape, so it's not just a square. He made a log bridge going from one section to the other. So you're surrounded by this art. You can't help but want to create some art.
Yeah. I love that. And I really hope that we can help inspire our kids to look at buildings as art. Yeah. And I think we've gotten away from that. Here in Boston, there's this big building boom. I think the rush to build all these new homes might kind of slow down with the pandemic and folks saying, do we really need to live on top of each other? But, they've built thousands of new units of homes here in Boston, and they all just look like boxes placed on top of one another. And it's not really attractive to this old guy. If we could get back to, why can't we live in a work of art? Why do we need to live in a box?
Exactly. I agree. I think architecture is glorious. And you look through our past and the things that people have created and the ideas and being inventive. My husband had to work really hard to build this around the trees. There's 2 trees that are neighbors, and he connected them with a bridge in these play or living spaces. There is a slide that goes down. He has a hatch, so you can lift the hatch and shoot down out of the floor for a quick escape.
This is wonderful. And I imagine, too, it must have been a great place to just kind of chill with your son sometimes and read.
Absolutely. We have come up here. We have read. He is so excited. He'll say, I can hear him yell, Mom, come look what we've drew. The storybooks that they're picture books and comic books that they're writing together as friends. They are very much inspired up here, and I have to call them in as it's getting dark. There are lights in here, so they'll turn on the lights and keep going. But absolutely, we've also had dinner and a movie up here. We like to, but we read stories up here. I have books up here for the kids to read, and plenty of papers and pens and pencils and markers, a whole desk full supplies.
Wow, unbelievable! I think we could talk about your treehouse for an hour, but we need to get back to Winston Winks. This is a neat little series. So tell us, who is Winston?
Well, Winston is my son. Absolutely. He's my inspiration. I've always loved children's books. My mother was a children's librarian. I grew up reading all the time. And so along comes my son, and he's saying, cute things. He's doing cute things. And I'm starting to write down these memoirs. And I realized they were stories very quickly. I started writing them down in story form. And so then I found myself, when an event would happen, when a conversation would happen with my son, I would find myself writing down a full story. And so quickly, I started kind of adapting them a little more creatively. And I found that I can make them an actual children's story. And there came Winston. And I have over 12 stories written about, and more come all the time. He'll say a statement, and I quick write down. He's like, "Oh, was that a story idea, Mom?" I'm like, "Absolutely, that was a story idea."
How does he feel about that? How does he feel that everything that comes out of his mouth, everything he does, could be turned into a story?
He has. I don't think he's put on the censor yet for me, because I think he's quite proud of it, and he loves so much to see the product, to see the final product of the book. He's just excited as I am to see how the illustrations translate with my words. And my illustrator, Sakshi Mandel, I've never met her. That's how it works with my publishing company, Friesen Press. But Sakshi Mandel gets just notes from me of what I'm looking for. And the first time she came back with this pencil sketch of Winston, we were blown away. We were absolutely blown away. We're like, that's him. That's Winston.
Very cool, very cool. And how would you describe Winston? Is not drawn as a little boy. He's kind of a creature.
He's a wombat, actually. He's a wombat. I had originally seen Winston as a little boy. But my publishing specialist at Friesen Press, Astra Crompton, she said, oh, you really need to have a animal or a creature so he's more relatable. And I totally understand that. So we started thinking of animals that started with the letter W, because all of my books are Winston Winks, Winston Wiggles, Winston's Wet. That's all plays on W words. And if you think about it, you can come up with all kinds of W words that Winston can have an adventure with. Mm-hmm. So we talked about walruses, whales, wolves, and finally I said, how about a wombat? And she goes, well, yeah, I think that would work. And I did actually, for part of my childhood, live in Australia. I lived in a little town called Booragoon that's in Western Australia near Perth. And so that's kind of a memory back to my childhood. I moved there about when I was 8 or 9 years old and lived there for about 4 years. And so I thought it was a good connection to my childhood.
Yeah, so cool. I'm just smiling because there's so much great stuff going on here. The tree house, the connection with your son, that his life. A lot of our kids there, when they get to be teenagers, their life is on display because they share it on social media. But this is so much better, I think, because it's really a fun. And not only is it a way to get likes like on social media, but it's a way to generate loves. It's a way Winston Winks is generating loves all over the world as families come together and read this book together. Do you ever think about that? As you're sharing your books, does it ever cross your mind that somewhere in the world, maybe Australia, maybe the UK, somewhere here in the United States, maybe South America, at this moment there's a family sitting down reading Winston Winks together?
I don't directly think of that. I'm glad you bring it up. I did send my books to the primary school I attended when I lived in Booragoon, Australia. And my son actually said that to me. He says, kids are going to read your books there, Mom. They're going to be reading your books in that school that you went to. And so that does warm my heart to share a story, to have a child open a book that you wrote the story and they smile about it and they think about it. My stories, I like to hope that people are inspired to have a conversation, to think about what the story's about, to think about what Winston did. It's not a Winston wins all situation. It's a Winston pursued a challenge and tried really hard, or Winston learned how to calm down whenever he was overly excited, or Winston realized there was love and friendship all around him, even if he can't feel it. And I think right now that's something or see it, I should say. He can feel it even if he can't see it. And that's what Winston's Wet is all about. Is understanding that there's love all around you.
I think that's something we all need right now. Talk a little bit more about that story and about that lesson that you want kids to hear.
Oh, absolutely. Winston's Wet. It's about Winston. It's a hot day, and he doesn't know what to do. It's just so hot he doesn't think he can play outside. Well, his mother comes up with a creative idea to get out the sprinkler. And as they run through the sprinkler, he sees, through the mist of the water, he sees a rainbow. And he's so excited. And he says, Mom, I want to hold it. I want to hug it. And he runs through the sprinkler trying to capture this rainbow. And then his mother reminds him that there's so many other things in this around you in this world that you can't put in your pocket, you can't hold, but it's there. Like friendship and love. And friendship's how you feel whenever you take a present to someone's birthday party and you feel that swelling of, I'm so happy to give this person this present. That's like friendship. And love is how you feel when someone tucks you in bed at night and you feel safe and warm and comfortable. And those are things that I wanted to portray in that story.
I love that image of that feeling that you get when you give something to someone. One of the things I do when I'm able to perform my educational magic show live with a person in front of me and we can actually touch the same things together.
Yes.
As I love to give out these little beads, and I ask kids to think about what they're grateful for. And it always warms my heart. And I remember the first time a child said it, and I think the child was only 5 or 6 years old, and I said, "What are you thankful for?" And the child said, "I am thankful that I get to help other people."
Oh, I love that.
And I think that that's such an important message. It's such an empowering message, I think, that we can give to our kids, to remind them that, yeah, not only can you help others, that you think you're so small and so helpless, but you can make a difference in people's lives. And guess what? That feels amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. I think teaching children the power of humanity, the power of friendship, and the power of love, and being a good, kind person to everybody. You know, that friend on the playground, or you see someone on the playground and they look like they're lonely and they want to join in your game. Just letting them join that game. They're going to go home smiling. They're going to be so happy that they got to be a part of something. Little actions go big ways in this world.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, and I just can't help it because, you know, I'm looking at you and the tree is behind you, the tree house is there. I think that your treehouse is a symbol of that sharing, because it's a beautiful space. It's a place where you can go and be away and be creative and get that inspiration. But it also sounds like it's a place that your son is happy to share, share with you, to share with his friends, and that's what really makes it special. Is that, yeah, this is mine, it's beautiful, it's cool, but it's not behind glass in a museum. It's alive, just like the tree that it's built on.
Well, absolutely. And keep in mind, my son's an only child, so my husband built this great big tree house not for an only child, but for a neighborhood. Because my child enjoys his neighbor friends so much. And also his schoolmates, people, you know, kids will come over and play safely. There's 6 feet you can be. But absolutely, this was not built just for an only child. This was built for memories and for sharing and for community.
Yeah. Hey, the one book I don't think we've touched on yet is Winston Wiggles, and I love to wiggle. So what kind of conversations can we have when we're reading Winston Wiggles together?
Well, Winston Wiggles is about it's time to go to bed and you still are wiggling. And what to do now. And I think that happens to everybody at any age. Absolutely. And it talks about how Winston learned how to count to 10 and wiggle while he was counting to 10, and then how to take 3 deep breaths to calm down and do a super squeeze hug. And you can do it to yourself, or you can squeeze somebody and do super squeeze hugs to kind of calm you down. And it's something that we've tried and true at our house at bedtime, as my child was young and my son was young, and we're trying to calm down before we go to bed.
That's so cool. And it's actually, boy, talk about a good, parenting skill to teach your kid. Instead of screaming at them, instead of punishing them, it's like, all right, you got the energy. Let's get it out. 10, 9, 8, 7, and
Absolutely.
Then the hug. Yeah, I think that would be a great technique for teachers to use when they're in, when you have that kid in class.
Absolutely, and I actually, I really enjoyed taking Winston Wiggles to classrooms, and we would have a pajama party when I would read it to the kids, and we would count down from 10 and get our wiggles out, and then practice our breathing, and practice our giving ourselves a super squeeze hug to help calm ourselves down after we've been wiggling and dancing.
Yeah,
it's absolutely wonderful.
And I love too the idea that we can start talking to our kids when they're very young, and give them the message that they have control over their feelings, over their energy, and we don't have to wait until they're in their teen years and they're struggling with anxiety and stress, and wow, it's really hard to learn this now and give me a pill. It's like if we can start talking to our kids, even if they're not showing signs of being anxious or stressed out, but if we can just start sharing these different kind of life skills with kids at a young age, that's a wonderful gift to give to our kids.
I agree completely. And as an adult who sometimes needs to learn how to turn off the day, I think it's a practice that if you start young, learning how to transition from a busy day or an exciting day, or if you're excited about what's coming the next day, how to get yourself in the moment. And in this moment, I'm supposed to be calm. In this moment, I want to be calm. And how do I get there? And I think it's a really good practice for everybody, just to understand this in this moment. What am I supposed to be feeling? And help yourself, like you said, like you're in control of trying to get there.
Yeah. I'm going to use this technique. I'm going to wait until I'm in some kind of public space and I'm feeling anxious, and I'm just going to wiggle for 10 seconds. Hey, I have to ask, what was it like growing up with a mom who was a children's librarian?
Well, it was extremely entertaining. She would dress as Mother Goose whenever she would do her story time or some other character. And there was books everywhere in our home, and books were being read at all times, and everything was a story. So really, my self-writing stories does not come that far off the apple tree at all, because she was always telling us about a new book, always reading us new stories, and thoroughly enjoyable. And we never stopped reading children's stories. That's the thing. My mother was a children's librarian, and I was still an adult, excited about these children's books she's telling me about. So it wasn't just reading to a small child. It was all the way through my whole life. Yeah.
Now, I have to ask, is your mom still with us? Does she know about Winston Wiggles and Winks and Wet?
Yeah, my mother's not still with us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I will tell you what, she did get to hear these stories. And she said, Megan, you need to do something with these. So, absolutely.
What a beautiful, beautiful story. You were mentioning that there are a whole lot of W's out there that Winston can get involved in. I'm trying to think of some myself. Do you have another one in process right now?
I actually do. The fourth book, I just received the color illustrations back, and you talk about having to wiggle myself into calm, because I'm so excited, because Sakshi Mangal, she brought the goods to me. Again, they are absolutely spectacular illustrations. I am so excited to share this book because it's a very different look. It's at nighttime. I will tell you this much. The story's title is Winston Wakes or Winston Wakes Up. I haven't really decided yet. So if anyone wants to message me their opinion of which one sounds better, I will totally take your opinion. But you can message me on my website if you like, or contact me any way you can on social media. But it's the illustrations are wonderful, and Winston wakes up. So that's the story that we're going to be seeing.
Cool. Well, you mentioned that folks can share their opinion with you. Where can folks go to connect with you and find out more about Megan Cline and the Winston series?
Absolutely. I have a website, meganclinebooks.com, or I'm on Facebook, Megan Cline Books, and on Instagram, Megan Cline Books. So you can look me up, and it's Megan Cline, C-L-I-N-E with a C. And you can message me on any of those avenues, and I'd be happy to get back to you. And if you have any W words out there you want Winston to get involved with, I think it's so much fun when I talk to people to hear their ideas for Winston. They come up with W words I'd never thought of before, and you might see your W word in a book down the road.
Well, the one that came to my mind as you were speaking is Winston Wines. And you could do two versions of it. You know, one for kids, Winston Wine, Mom, why? And then for the adults, Winston Wine sits down at the end of the day.
I like it. I like it. I had I was talking to a American Legion group about the Winston books. An adult, one of the Legionnaires came up to me and said, Winston whistles. And he was thinking trains because he's a train aficionado. And I thought, that's a great idea. So I wrote that down in my notebook.
Okay.
If you see
all right.
writing a notebook, you know I've got a good idea.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited. Now, is there anywhere that folks can go to see a picture of the treehouse? I'm sorry, I can't get over the treehouse.
Well, okay, so if you go to my website, I've just started the Treehouse Book Time with an author friend of mine. Her name is Becky Carlisle. She wrote Baby Squashy Face and Baby Silly Sickies. And we are starting a Treehouse Book Time where we feature a book by an author that we've met. We're meeting these wonderful authors. We're collaborating, talking about being virtual authors, talking about being children authors. And so we show a book and we show an activity. And there's a videotape there. And yes, the treehouse from the outside and the inside are in these videos.
Awesome.
So please please come and look. And they're on YouTube as well. And there's links on all my social media. You'll be able to find a link to see pictures of this treehouse.
That's great. Well, we've had such a wonderful time visiting her beautiful magical treehouse copyright. Oh, well, I don't know. We've been talking to the author of Winston Winks and Winston Wiggles and Winston's Wet, Megan Cline. Megan, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I've enjoyed this so much.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Ray Rankin. She'll be here to celebrate Cowgirl and the Ghost Horse. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Again, we want to invite you to Reading in the New Year. It is our week-long family literacy event. It's all happening online at readingintheNewYear.com. You're going to love it. It is absolutely free. You're going to be able to experience all sorts of wonderful, wonderful children's literature read aloud. We have picture books, we have middle grade books, we have chapters of YA titles. It is all happening Christmas Day, starting Christmas Day at readingintheNewYear.com. Be sure to check it out. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Want to thank Megan Cline. Also want to thank her husband for building that awesome treehouse. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.